All right, so the top 10 worst albums video is now officially out. So now we can move on to the top 20 albums of 2024. I reviewed on my Album of the Year site close to 200 records, and that's not even the ones that I reviewed off of the side. So I probably listened to about 250 to 300 albums, and condensing it down to 20 was incredibly difficult, but we're here now. So the top 20 to number 6 is going to be albums that I'm going to talk about, but not terribly in depth, because then when we get to the top 5, that's when we'll get a little bit more in depth with the discussion. And I'm not going to write some of the full album titles. Sometimes I'll put the artist, sometimes I'll put a shortened kind of title to the project as well. So let's start off here. And if obviously you can't see it, I always say it as well. So the Auditorium Volume 1 by Common and Pete Rock. Just some great production. Just a really kind of old school feeling, just kind of comfort food kind of rap project. Common brings some great performances, some great lyrical gems across this project. Stellar is one of my favorite tracks of the year. Just overall, if you're just looking for something that is a definitively good project that you know you're not going to be disappointed and you're going to get some great raps and great production, the Auditorium is a really great project to dive into. So then number 19, I'll put a ... at the end. So this is Vampire Weekend with Only God Was Above Us. If you're looking for a slight return to the sound of modern Vampires of the City, but you do get a little bit more of that lush kind of production that Vampire Weekend has been using for a lot of their projects recently. But it is a lot more grandiose, and it's just a lot more fuller sounding and more lush sounding. This is one of their best projects, and it's an amazing return to form, especially considering Father of the Bride was a decent project. But I feel like with Only God Is Above Us, it just feels like they have picked up right from Modern Vampires of the City, and it is one of their best projects in their discography easily. So then we move on to number 18. I gotta make sure I write these correctly too. So this is Scrapyard by Quedeca. Just a nice collection, whether they're Lucy's from I Didn't Mean to Haunt You or Lucy's just completely different singles on themselves. This is Quedeca's most accessible project. It has some of the catchiest songs that he's released, but it still offers experimental cuts and kind of the bangers that we kind of expect. It's a really good kind of collection of what Quedeca is as an artist at this current time. And I've had a lot of amazing moments with this project and songs that I've gravitated towards, especially across the entire year. So then we go on to number 17. A little bit more of a harder album to digest across the year, but I find as I kind of listen to it, it is an incredibly satisfying listen, and that's the new sound from Jordy Griep. Formerly, I guess Black Midi either is on hiatus or is finished. Formerly the lead singer of Black Midi. Just an amazing, just jazz and kind of rock kind of fusion going on here that allows for some of the craziest and most calculated moments of music across this entire year. When you think of songs of like Holy, I think songs like Blues and the new sound, the title track, which is my favorite one. You do get some pretty wild and kind of Broadway feeling performances in the vocals, and then juxtapose that with some amazing like just jazz and just kind of improvisation playing going on here. It is a wild, it is a chaotic listen, but it is a incredibly satisfying listen once you kind of get past kind of the really showy vocals of this thing. So then we get to number 16. Maybe I'll write this one out. And this is Jessica Pratt's Here in the Pitch. Just a simple 9-track album, just under 30 minutes. It sounds so much like the 60s of the folk kind of era, and it just sounds so warm. It sounds so inviting. A song like Here Is, or Life Is, I think is actually the title of it. It just brings this warmth to it, and it's a perfect album for the fall and winter. If you're just looking for something that is just very pleasant on the ears, very well executed, and the vocal performances are kind of like this withered kind of feeling to them, but they just bring such a presence and such a warmth to them. Here in the Pitch is Definitely an album you can just throw on and just have a really calm kind of experience with it. Really enjoyed the record. Then we get to number 15. And then I'll put the exclamation point and I'll put the emoji there as well. So it is Smile by Porter Robinson. Definitely his riskiest kind of venture away from the electronic kind of sounds that he's been going for the past few projects, going into something that's a little bit more kind of emo and rock directed, but it does allow for moments of honesty, allows moments to discuss about mental health and feelings with relationships with his fan base. It is definitely a great project, and it's amazing to see that it worked out so well because it can show that Porter Robinson can really branch out into any genre that he wants and make it his own, and also really expand on what he's been working on throughout his entire discography so far. So Smile, incredible album, and I can't wait to see what comes after this project of the growth that we've been experiencing. So number 14. I'll just put the artist title here. So this is Dude Central, Where the Butterflies Go. Just a very brutally honest and DIY look into an artist kind of working through the cycle of grief of their passing mother. It is a very hard album to get through, but I think it's an essential listen. It really did impact me across the few listens that I've had with it. Again, it's a very hard album to go back to consistently, but when you do, it does cause quite a bit of reflection in myself, and especially with a lot of the things that have been going on in the background of my life, it does really impact me in a personal level. And I saw that he liked the video on this album review. That is really surreal for me. I didn't expect people to watch my content, but not only just people, but sometimes artists as well. That's really cool. Shout out to Dude Central. Really great project. If you ever want to talk or even do an interview, I'd be totally down. So number 13, and even just putting these 2 or 3 letters, it's GNX by Kendrick Lamar. His most straightforward project, his most fun project, but you still get those moments that you can, if you really want to, really dive deep into the lyrics with songs like Reincarnated, Man at the Garden, Gloria. You get some really just honest and also just really cool kind of background storytelling of songs like The Heart Part 6, but you just get the bangers like Peekaboo, Squabble Up, and Luther is just a great sultry banger as well. This is a really fun, adventurous record, and it doesn't really go for anything extravagant, but it's just still a fun record to listen to, and it's so incredibly replayable. And hearing some of these songs at the Super Bowl, like for example TV Off, is going to be in a moment, that's for sure. So we get to number 12, and it's Brat by Charli XCX. One of the most impactful pop records of this year so far, easily. Not even so far, it's over. So, but taking the hyperpop elements that she's been working on throughout this decade and kind of putting them more into a palatable lens, especially with this project. It really brings some of the catchiest songs to this entire year, and it does bring the sophistication when it comes to the lyrics as well, either talking about motherhood or their tribute to Sophie on this as well. It's a really great mix, and while Charli and How I'm Feeling Now did have some accessible moments, I feel like Brat has this really nice blend of being a little bit out there and experimental, but not to the point where not like everyone can't just dive into it. This is so accessible. It's such a fun listen. It's such a gratifying listen. And the production on this is also just fantastic by A.G. Cook. Honorable mention to the remix album as well. There are some great remixes on the remix album. So then we get to number 11, and this is one of the newer additions I made to the list. And it came out a little bit later in the year. And this is Evergreen by Soccer Mommy. And I've been following Soccer Mommy for a couple of years now. But what I like with Evergreen is that it feels like it's more concise. It feels like the lyrical content and focus is more straightforward with songs like Abigail especially, which is just a tribute to Stardew Valley, which is so fun and so creative, and I think the song works out incredibly well when you know the context of the song. And overall, I think this is probably just a really well done and well calculated record. And goes into indie rock, indie folk. The title track, which is the last track on this record, is so beautiful with the strings going on throughout the verses. Overall, Soccer Mommy did a really good job with this record, and I'm gonna try to see her live in February. I think it's when she comes to Montreal. So now we get into the top 10. And this, about a week or two ago, wouldn't even have been in my top 20. But with a re-listen, Dark Times by Vince Staples is his best record this decade so far. With both records, with the self-titled, I really liked that record, but it was too short. With Ramona Park Broke My Heart, I like that record, but sometimes I felt like it got kind of monotonous. It takes both of those records and makes such a nice, compact, but very fulfilling listen, especially with songs Shame on the Devil, Black and Blue, Etufe especially, and Little Homies. There are so many great songs that are really catchy, have lyrical substance, is on the darker side, hence the title. And it's definitely the best collection of songs that Vince has made across this decade so far. Dark Times is going to be around this kind of ranking on a lot of people's lists, and it's well deserved. So now we get to number 9. This is the newest addition to the list. I think only just coming out right in November. But this is Heavy Metal by Cameron Winter. Cameron Winter is the lead singer of Geese, and being able to hear Cameron Winter's vocals, and of course with the Geese, that's 3D Country is one of my favorite albums of the decade. I think I actually had it at number 1, but to hear it in this kind of more spacier and more kind of experimental direction makes the vocals and makes the possible lengths that Cameron Winter can go down the road with his career to be so incredibly fascinating. And just with songs like Nausicaa that bring these catchy elements, and then songs that are so unbelievably beautiful and just expansive, like a song like Drinking Age. Cameron Winter with Geese and self-titled record or self-released records may be one of the most fascinating vocalists of this decade easily. And I will be following every step of the way of what this career is going to lead to, because it could be something incredibly special as we keep going deeper into the decade. So we go to number 10. And a lot of people are going to have this record definitely higher in their list, or I guess closer to number 1. But man, still, I think Magdalena Bay's Imaginal Disc is so beautifully and wonderfully crafted. Some of the best synth pop and electro pop, just pop in general, that you will hear this year. Death and Romance is such a fully realized, beautiful, entrancing song that has so many moving parts, especially when it comes to the drum fills and just all of the just pieces that come together on that song and this album together create some of the most euphoric moments that I've heard this entire decade. It is so well crafted. Every single piece has time put into it, has dedication put into it, has commitment put into it, and you really hear it across this entire track list. It is something to behold, and you definitely, I can say only so much. You just need to go listen to Imaginal Disc, because man, when I heard it the first time, it is like mind-expanding stuff. It is absolutely fantastic. So number 7. Make sure I was at number 7. Okay, good. I did not lose my track. Sometimes that happens, and I don't want that to happen. Now, if you recall, if you're a fan of this channel, which if you are, that's pretty sick. I like you. But Shabaka was a 10 out of 10. And while I may not have it as a 10 out of 10 now, the experience and the ambience and just this calmness and this beautiful feeling that Shabaka's perceive the knowledge, or perceive the beauty, acknowledge its grace. There we go. Sometimes the titles I get mixed up. But the experience that it encapsulates, and usually with jazz records, I find that they run a little bit too long and I may start to lose interest. This is about 40 to 45 minutes. The guest appearances, especially from people like Elucid and Moses Sumney, just bring these just beautiful and just truly capturing moments of just this ambient jazz and new age kind of feel to this album. It creates moments that I've honestly never experienced before. And whenever I'm in just a really chaotic mental state, this is the first record that I go to. Especially some of these songs, like I said, with the one with Moses Sumney, there's another one on here. Just the track titles are really long, so it's hard to really capture them. But overall, like this album, when times got tough, I can definitely say that this album was the one that I went to first. And just a really great record. A short, compact listen, especially when it comes to a genre. I can't recommend it enough still. Okay, so now we are on to number 6. And this is Bird's Eye by Raven Lenae. Truly just one of the catchiest records of the year. I've said it a couple times, but this one, songs like Genius, songs like One Wish, Love is Blind, truly a lot of these songs, especially with Raven Lenae's super distinctive and super unique vocal delivery, it just makes songs that just instantly get stuck in your head the moment that you hear them. I remember I heard Genius for the first time and I easily played that about 7 or 8 times in a row. It's so well crafted, it's so catchy. It has these moments of throwing back to 90s R&B and then has these moments a little bit of just pop kind of laced through here. Just a really great, compact, and fun listen. I really like albums that are about 30 to 40 minutes long because I'm able to really capture and have so much fun with the record without it growing stale. And Bird's Eye and stuff like Dark Times, Brat even, Here in the Pitch, like some of these albums are perfect for short listens because they are so satisfying with the time that they have. All right, so now we get into our top 5. Now I'll just put, I didn't give myself much space here, but I'll just put JPEG there with I Laid Down My Life For You. The production on this record is so bombastic, it's so kind of raucous, especially when it brings kind of these rock and metal kind of influences to the production. It allows this album to have such a harder edge. And the artistic progression of JPEG, just in the production alone, is such an interesting and fun thing to see, because I can see this going even further in kind of that harder direction. I can see it going in a more experimental direction, even more experimental than it already is. With the album like Scaring the Hose, it really did raise the bar, and I think with I Lay Down My Life For You, I think it just raises it a little bit more. And what I do really appreciate about this album as well, and where it kind of makes it kind of a cut above a lot of the JPEG projects for me so far, is that it is his most vulnerable and his most personal, even if it's just a little bit. When you get content like relationships, and there's quite a few references to religion as well, even just pulling the veil just a little bit makes a world of difference, because it does allow me to actually attach and connect with the record, not just in an auditory sense of loving the record, but on a personal level as well. So I think this is a step in a very, very positive direction. This is one of the most played JPEG records that I have so far, and I love Cornballs, I love Veteran, and I love Scaring the Hose especially too. But I think with each passing record, it just keeps getting better and better and better. Okay, so we're now on to number 4. Hopefully I can fit this in. I think I'll be able to. There we go. So it's Bright Future by Adrienne Lenker. Truly a great example of taking minimalism and making it just so profound and so impactful with every second of the record. Especially when it comes to the beginning track of Real House, one of the most gut-wrenching and most personal songs that I've heard this decade. It allows for these moments of emptiness to create such powerful emotional pieces. And especially when you get deeper into the record as well, you do get some more folkier elements, sometimes even some bluegrass elements as well. With Bright Future, this is definitely one of those records that will stick around throughout the decade and be something that when I go to it, when I return to it, it's just going to just feel so both warm and such like an emotional gut punch at the same time. This album just feels like organic and it feels so earthy. Like it feels like something that's so grassroots. And I really love that record for it. So, Bright Future by Adrian Lenker. So now we move on to third place. And another one of the newer editions. That looks like a 6, but I'll tell you it's a G. Half of it now is me trying to fit the titles of this in here. But it's Gene Dawson with Glimmer of God. I have bits and pieces have been following Gene Dawson's career with the last record, Chaos Now. But with Glimmer of God, I don't know if this is a completely off-the-wall take, but this record reminds me of After Hours, of the way of how it perfectly executes synth pop, bringing back sounds from the 80s, but bringing it into a modern context and it being executed so perfectly. You get some perfectly executed longer cuts, like songs like Houston, and you get some darker moments like Pain with Bones, and then you get these amazing, fully realized and just such fun pop songs like You're Bleeding Everywhere. You really get a true mix of what's going on here. It's fun, it's enthralling, it's catchy, and it allows for just some great vocal performances as well. Gene Dawson really expands his vocal range across this record, and I can't stop playing it. And it was originally about like the 9 to 10 spot, but I played it so much that it moved all the way to number 3. So now we move on to second place. And right when I heard it the first time, it was right at my number 3 spot. And then I listened to it again, it's just like it needs to go even higher to number 2. Tyler's most mature project, it reminds me a lot of Igor, but taking more of the rap elements from moments like Call Me If You Get Lost, bringing that kind of marching band, militaristic kind of feel to this project, reminds me of elements of Cherry Bomb as well. It's a great mix of everything that Tyler has done throughout his career, but it's bringing this maturization, don't know if that's a word, but it brings this maturity to Tyler, talking about relationships, talking about fatherhood, also learning about his father. It allows these moments to really stick out so much more than previous projects. And it's a nice building board of what Tyler can go forward in his next projects with being so vulnerable, with being so honest, and being so transparent about his family life and relationships, and even just smaller things like paranoia and everything else in between. This is truly an amazing just first step into something I think that's going to be even more truly special down the road. And now we get to number 1. And I feel like I should change the marker color since I changed the number 1 color. What am I going to write down for this? Because I have literally no room. I guess I'll write the artist. Now, if you were to tell me maybe like 4 or 5 years ago that I would get into metalcore again, I would not believe you. And then to tell me that in 2024, my number 1 album of the year is a metalcore record of Knocked Loose, You Won't Go Before You're Supposed to, I would think you're crazy. But man, I play this album or songs from it at least once every couple of days. It is the most brutal, the most violent, the most pissed off, the most fun, and the most chaotic metal, rock, metalcore album I have ever heard. Just in a quick 30 minutes, you get some crazy, crazy breakdowns, some of the most wild and unhinged vocal performances I've heard this decade. You get some experimentation like songs on Suffocate, where you get the reggaeton breakdown in the middle way point. You get songs like with the guttural pig squeals on Blinding Faith. You get some really catchy elements like on like songs like Slaughterhouse 2 with Motionless in White. This brings me to wanting to go back into the metalcore genre and metal in general. This is the album that fully brings me back into a genre that I completely neglected for years because it is so perfectly executed. It is wild, it is fun, it is brutal, and it's so incredibly satisfying throughout its entire runtime, and it's crazy replayable. For an album that sounds this unhinged, it is so catchy at points, but it's also, again, so incredibly replayable, and it's my number one album of 2024. So that is my top 20. A lot of records. Again, on my other list, I think I have 80 of them. So I may take those into shorter, condensed YouTube shorts and kind of go through a whole bunch of honorable mentions that I had because there's so many amazing records. This is one of the best years of music that I've ever experienced. It reminds me a lot of 2018. It reminds me a lot of 2015. Just truly an amazing year, not just for music, but also for the channel. I was gone for like 3 or 4 months, and I expected subscribers to go down. It's gone up. Not, I'm surprised crazily. The G-Eazy video has just reached 4,000 views. Who's watching me? But if you're subscribed, if you're watching, if you've watched, if you've liked the content, even if you've disliked the content, I truly thank you for giving me the time to just be in my basement and have a whiteboard and just to talk about music. It has been a fun journey, and it's not going to stop. I think I'm going to figure out a schedule so that way I keep the consistency down, but I also want to improve the content. I want to work on some edited stuff as well if I have the time. But thank you for giving me the time to do this video and to watch the content. Hope to see you in 2025. Currently, we're here, obviously. And I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.